We're going to talk about what has happened in Ukraine on this day of the Russian invasion. We'll examine the actions and the strategies, both military and political. Now, if this is your first time watching, my name is Darren Gertis. I'm a professor who's built multiple leadership programs at Charleston Southern University. So we'll also view these events through the lens of leadership. And I also wrote a book about Zelenskyy called I Need Ammunition, Not a Ride, and you can find it on Amazon.
Here's what's going on. The Institute for the Study of War has not put out their assessment yet for June 24th. That's today, and so we're going to skip that for right now. The uh, United Kingdom's Twitter wasn't all that useful. They usually put out a daily assessment as well. But we're going to go to the deep state map, and we will look on that. And so here is the map updated as it's going to be as of 6:24. Okay, so what's actually happened, reports that I'm reading, is that, and you're going to see this in just a moment from the or Kiev Post. I'm sorry, I tried to pronounce that correctly. They've been ordered to evacuate Severodonetsk, and that is because in the last couple of days, if you look at this map, and you see just what's happened here. Look at all the ground that's been taken just in a week or so. It is a 24th, so let's roll it back to about the 19th, 18th. So just over this week, look at all the ground that Russia's taken here, moving toward Lysychansk. And so the bridges have been blown a little over a week ago, and all that ground was taken. So they're falling back not just to Lysychansk, but probably down these roads and getting out. And this is the Ukrainian army holding this territory so that they are able to escape. Now, this is the line of the Luhansk, and when the Russians capture this, they'll be able to claim that they've captured all of Luhansk, and that's going to be a big moral victory for Russia. It'll be big morale, and they really need it because their morale is very sagging. Here's a Kiev Post of what's going on today. Ukrainian forces will retreat from Severodonetsk, the embattled eastern region, remaining in positions. This is the governor of the Luhansk. Remaining in positions that have been relentlessly shelled for months just doesn't make sense. It's been nearly turned to rubble. Let's see what else. The U.S. is sending more advanced rocket systems. The United States is sending another $450 million worth of new military assistance, including advanced rocket systems. Great. But you only got the HIMARS, it's talking about the HIMARS here, you only got the HIMARS in country yesterday. Had they had the HIMARS, let's look at a deep state map again. Had they had the HIMARS, they would be able to hit almost to the Russian border. Not quite. I mean, I'm a little overstating that, but from here, you could hit a range something like this from if you were in Severodonetsk, a range of that kind of radius if you were parked right up on the edge of it. Now, you don't want to be parked right up on the edge of it, but you get the idea, right? Those weapons would have made a significant difference, but it takes a while for that to happen. World leaders are at NATO are going to be coming back to a G7 and NATO summit, and what they're going to be looking at is what are the effect of the sanctions imposed against Russia so far, and what do they need to do from here. Now, this was an interesting bit. A Moscow official was killed in Kherson. Now, yeah, he's blown up. What did you expect was going to happen? If you're occupying this region, do you think people are just going to lie down? According to preliminary data, he died. An explosive device was planted in his car, and this was a Moscow-appointed official in southern Kherson region. And it's just going to continue. They don't have the ability. The Russians have the ability to take, but not to hold land without this. I mean, they just don't have the force that will allow that to happen. Okay, so I try to get multiple perspectives. I look at The Guardian, I look at Al Jazeera. Believe it or not, Al Jazeera does a great job curating. I look at US news, I look at RT, Russian Times, to see what kind of bizarre things they might be saying. Here's The Guardian on day 121 of the invasion. So if we scroll down, Ukraine is recording 200 to 300 war crimes committed by Russian forces on its territory every day. That's crazy. So it's not like they're fighting a war just trying to kill the enemy. They're trying to destroy buildings, destroy cultural things, loot, do all kinds of things that are against the rules of war. And yeah, so that's what's going on in Ukraine. according to The Guardian. Okay, so here's another article. Russia is blaming the U.S. for the Kaliningrad transit restrictions that Lithuania placed. Now, Lithuania likes to be tight with the United States. I've been to Lithuania 3 times. There's a spot in the center of Vilnius where George Bush gave a speech saying that we're with you, and if you're attacked, you have the United States as a friend and ally. And I've been on that spot. Here, the Moscow is saying that the so-called collective West, with the explicit instruction of the White House, imposed a ban on rail transit of a wide range of goods through Kaliningrad region, the Russian Foreign Ministry said in a statement. Okay, so at least they're not calling us the Empire of Lies like they were before. They said this was a part of a pattern of increasingly hostile actions from the American side. Well, I mean, yeah, what you call hostile, we call defense. Moscow has slammed the move. Now get this, they slammed the move as calling it a blockade and pledged a tough response. What do you think you're doing to Ukraine? I mean, it's just fascinating to me how doing it one way is not considered a problem, but doing the other way is a terrible hostile act. How could you be like that? Okay. Last thing, Zelenskyy gave a number of speeches today. Most of them were pretty short. But in his speeches, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of these. He talked about a number of really interesting ideas. Now, I'm going to get it from my document that I copied it from. Today is the beginning of the 4th month. So happy 4-month anniversary to Ukraine for holding out this long. It was supposed to fall in just a matter of days. In fact, there was a report that said like the airborne forces, the special forces types were supposed to have gotten into Kyiv and within a couple of days have been able to neutralize Zelenskyy and take out the government, and nothing went to plan. Okay, so Zelenskyy says this: 120 days ago, Russia launched a full-scale war against us. For 120 days, Ukraine and its people have heroically been defending their land and their freedom, and they have. They really have. They're fighting back one of the largest armies in the world, the aggressor whose population is 3 times larger than ours, and the area almost 30 times bigger. Therefore, each of the 120 days of our struggle is historic, but this day is special. And he's right. Then he went on and talked about the application for the EU, and they thought, what are you doing with the application for the EU? And he said, look, this is a new summit, not a new paragraph, not a new page. It's not a new, this is a new volume in the history of Ukraine's integration. And he said this: today it is recognized Ukraine is not a bridge, not a pillow between the West and Russia, not a buffer zone between Europe and Asia, not a sphere of influence, not a gray zone, not a transit territory, not the border between orcs and elves. Listen, that is brilliant, because this is what Putin wanted. Putin wanted Ukraine to stay neutral and not join NATO. Not EU is not NATO, but it's still, he wanted a neutral buffer zone between Russia and the West, and they're getting away from that. And they wanted to get away from that years ago. Here he talks about this is a serious step in the relations between Ukraine and the EU. This is not just friendship, not just sympathy, but a firm and intention to become one in the future. In the near future, as of today, Ukraine will be able to join the work of certain bodies and new EU programs. Ukraine has never been like, EU programs, access to which has been limited to third countries. Today, we got rid of this humiliating definition. Ukraine has never been like that in essence, but the official terminology called us that. We got rid of it. We are not a third country, not a 10th, not a 100th. We are a future member of the EU. Now, that's great. I'm happy for Ukraine. I'm not a big fan of the EU. I was cool with Brexit as I look at this. But for Ukraine, I would say, yeah, this is probably a really healthy thing for you, given Russia's right on your border. Okay. He said, today Ukraine's fighting for its freedom, and this war began when Ukraine declared its right to freedom, to its choice of future. We saw in it the European Union. No matter how someone convinced us that no one wanted us there, and he's talking about Putin, and a happy tomorrow for Ukraine was possible in a completely different union called customs. Now, what he's talking about is, okay, so let's roll back the clock a little bit. It is 2014, and this guy, his name is President Yanukovych. Okay, this guy was about to broker a deal in Vilnius to move toward the EU, and then he decided at the last minute to pull out and take a deal by Putin, which is what he's talking about, this deal called customs. called this different union called customs, where Putin was actually giving them a kind of a better offer, trying to bribe them over to be more in the Russian orbit. And when he did that, it kicked off what's called the Maidan Revolution. The Maidan Revolution was protests in the streets, and eventually it lasted for like 4 months. And eventually, the president left the country. He actually went to Russia and just quit. Okay, and no matter how surprised they were that Ukraine preferred freedom over cheap gas, we have chosen the path determined by our people, not someone's power, chosen by Maidan, not Red Square. Okay, so this happened in 2014. The actions of that president was what then directly led to, and here he goes again, that is why the Russian Federation appeared on it, annexing Crimea, which they did shortly thereafter, occupying part of the Donbas, which they did shortly thereafter, and they then sent in their little green men to occupy this thing that they were essentially Russian soldiers without any uniform designations. And then they kind of took that land, and they held 7% of Ukrainian land since 2014, and later started a full-scale war against the whole of Ukraine. And this is why the decision of the EU is so important, and it motivates us and shows all that is needed, not only by us. Having declared our desire to go to the EU, today we finally heard clearly, we are waiting for you. You are welcome. We want to see you as a full member. Thought it was a great speech. And then he had a couple other short speeches, one that I can skip over safely, but the other one, he spoke to, he said Ukraine's gained membership, and this was the Everest one. He said, you know, people are talking about, yeah, well, it's going to take years to be able to complete EU membership, and it's going to be so hard. And he said, look, just take a breath. Okay, imagine conquering Everest. You reached the penultimate point. That's the second to highest point. You didn't look around, didn't even take a breath and talk about it further, how to get further to the top. How difficult would it be to overcome the last 1,848 meters? Instead, we forgot and devalued our own success. Maybe we should first recall that we've already covered 7,000 meters. What a freaking brilliant analogy. Like, this guy has just... He's the communicator in chief. He has such a great way with words. Okay, so maybe we should first recall that we've already covered 7,000 meters. Let's not be ashamed to talk about our achievements. Let's not be a nation with a short memory and inferiority complex. And he's talking about, it's true that, you know, we do have a ways to go and we have these things to focus on to be full members, but okay, let's celebrate our victories, and I think that's great. And then he concluded with this line, do not rejoice at a slap in the face to Moscow, but be proud of applause for Ukraine. And that's why I want to see us in one family. Let it inspire you. We deserved it, realized it. Smile, please, and may God give us all a quiet night. Great speech. Okay, his last speech was just after midnight their time, so it was still part of the day of the 24th, so I'm going to cover it here. Here he's speaking to the Georgians. Now, the Georgians were trying to join the EU, and they've been invaded in 2008 by Russia. And so he's speaking to them like, hey, you know, we've made it, we want to reach out to you as well. He said this, I'm grateful to the sons of Georgia who are fighting against Russia together with our warriors. Their exploits are our common exploits. Their wounds are our wounds. Our victory will be the victory of each of them, each of you. We will never give up because Donbas and Crimea are our land, just as Azakzia and South Ossetia are your land. Those are the regions, the first I can't pronounce, Abkhazia and South Ossetia are two regions that in 2008, the Russians essentially invaded and took over and called their own little countries and carved it out of Georgia, which, had we stopped the Russians then, had the world woken up and gone, you know, that's probably not a good idea, 2014 probably would have happened. Would not have happened. And if 2014 didn't happen, this wouldn't have happened. So, you know, dictators tend to just become more aggressive the more you feed them. He said, yesterday, Ukraine became a candidate for EU membership. You are on this path. Act. We will help you. What a class act. I mean, that's just great stuff. Again, there's some bad news because, you know, they're going to really have to retreat out of, they're retreating out of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk probably is going to be falling pretty soon. And when they do, then this border means that uh, Russia will have all of that land. But the battle's lost, but the war is not over, and it's going to go on for some time.
Hey, if this video was helpful, hit like to help others find it in YouTube's algorithm. Subscribe so that you can stay informed. And one more thing, if you are moved to contribute to the humanitarian aid for Ukraine, I have a link below for Samaritan's Purse. If you want to give, be sure to give only to reputable organizations. There's a lot of scammers out there. Thanks for your time.